Welcome to FinTech's DEI Discussions podcast series. We are here today to celebrate the wins, raise awareness of the challenges, and walk the talk for inclusive change across the entire financial technology industry. Today, we are recording this podcast live on stage at the annual European Women Payment Network London Connect Hub conference. We are discussing the hugely important topic of Bounceback careers, bumps, jumps, and squiggly lines. I'm over the moon to be joined by these three amazing women to share their stories. Welcome Divya, Megan and Nicola.
Hi.
So I'm going to hand it over to you, please, Nicola, to introduce yourself to us and tell us a little bit more about you and your business.
Hi, so my name's Nicola Marins. I recently took on the position of Head of Commercial for the Pay firm. I've actually not CEO, but thanks for the promotion, ladies. I love to promote. I've been there for about 8 weeks now. Previously was with PaySafe and a few more startups beforehand.
Thank you. Megan?
So my name's Megan Dunford. I would describe myself as a pathfinder. So what I really love to do is dig into complex and ambiguous scenarios and find that way forward and then take people on that journey. Most recently, I was Chief Operating Officer at Lumon, where I was responsible for operations, technology, product, and change. But my career in payments really started 21 years ago as entry-level mid-office operations, and then really progressed from there. And I've been on my garden leave ended at the end of February, so I've been using this time to work on some side projects and really reflect on my journey and think about, where I want to go next.
And do loads of networking, which we'll talk about soon. Divya.
Hi, I'm Divya Eapen. I founded two companies that are doing very different things earlier this year. One is a business that's focused on helping companies grow sustainably and scale sustainably, specifically looking at credit risk, early problem recognition, and the cultures that you put in around that. And then the other business is in the wine industry, so I call it a wine and enjoyment community, but so two completely different things. And it's only because of the various squiggles and jumps that I've had in my career, and there have been quite a few, some very difficult ones as well, that has given me the confidence to be able to have taken this risk again.
Thank you, each of you, for your introductions. So we're here today to talk about the difficulties that so many people have been facing in this turbulent market. Over the last 2 years, Helen just touched upon it. We've seen many tech cuts, we've seen many setbacks across many different industries, and our industry in particular has been hit hard. We've seen toxic work environments, we've seen so many talented people out of work or having to forge a squiggle or a change. So we wanted to talk a bit about that, and I wanted to come to you first, Nicola, just to hear a bit more about your thoughts about the marketplace.
I think the marketplace is very difficult. I think it's possibly, and I hate to pull the gender card because I try and be balanced and not come across as I have a chip on my shoulder, but it is infinitely more difficult when trying to embrace the things that we're expected to do. We can no longer, in today's economies, run a household on one salary. Both parents have to work. The home life still falls, in the majority, to the woman, and with the return to the office of something I was having a chat with an investor about earlier today, the expectation and the return to office, it lowers the geographical difference between the north, the south, and all of those other places. We then lower diversity in that. We lower our accessibility to people who may not find a train or whatever very easy. We lower the movements of those people that are available to come into an office environment. And we're so very connected now. Good talent resides outside of London. So it's how do you get that recognition in the working environment that good talent doesn't need to be in the office for 5 days a week. I don't think anybody should have to be. How do you balance that on your CV to say that is my non-negotiable, and that is unfortunately one of mine because it falls on my category of freedom?
It's really interesting, isn't it? Because I've just seen so many businesses, it's sort of the catch-all answer, whatever the problem is, I know we can solve it if everyone comes back in the office. And just thinking about navigating this environment, I know you've spoken about the power of a great manager. Yes. Can you tell us a bit about that?
I've been very fortunate. In fact, I've had lots of squiggles. I've had some very terrible managers, but I most recently have had a couple of very, very good ones. And one is now somebody I'd consider as a very close personal friend. He is the person that I phoned when changing roles and was on day 2 and said, I think I've made a terrible mistake. And alas, the mistake continued because it was part of my growth journey and it was necessary. But without good people raising other people, we don't have a good workforce. So I now know what good looks like. He is my benchmark. If it's not that, I don't want it. Mm. It's difficult, though, because we do have to balance that with, hey, I've got bills to pay. That's the reality.
And thinking about that support and networks, Divya, I know you've got a lot to share on that.
Yeah, so I think all these squiggles, it gives you a lot of personal and internal resilience, but actually some of the, I worked at Greensell and I was the chief risk officer, as the crisis management chief risk officer when it was failing, and gave everything to that. And when the company failed, I was just broken, and I had no energy left. And yes, over time I could pull on that internal resilience, but actually what I needed was the support systems, the communities I have, groups like this, like Women of FinTech, but also my personal support systems. And I think we focus on internal resilience so much, but we actually do need support externally as well, and people want to help. I think that's the nice thing. I want to help others. Most people naturally want to help each other out. So ask for it, and and that's so important. And it's so much a part of being able to get through those bumps that you hit.
Mm. And it's so important that we've got communities such as this, and we're leaning upon one another, raising each other up. And I think in every talk so far, we've heard someone say, this is about all of us, it's not about the individual. And I'd really love for that to be one of the key things that people take away today. Megan, we've had lots of conversations about squiggly lines and sort of just the future of work and moving away from what people thought 10 years ago was the right way of working, 10 years in one company on a CV. Share some of your lessons with us.
Yeah, I think squiggly careers are the future of work, and I think we're there now. And, my journey, if you look at my CV or my LinkedIn, it looks pretty traditional on paper. So a lot of my career was at the same company. I was at Western Union and Western Union Business Solutions for a long time. But actually, even in that situation, it's very squiggly. Like, you have to navigate so much change. There are multiple acquisitions, reorgs, all of those things. So being open to opportunities, relying on your network and kind of playing back and reflecting and looking for those opportunities, I think is really important. And a kind of a personal lesson I'm learning right now is it's great to have those internal skills, but you also kind of need to look externally and build those networks and relationships and connection to the external environment, because as we move into the future, that's going to be even more the case, because there is so much change, whether it's technology, industry, roles that are being created or being eliminated. That's just reality, and it's happening faster and faster. So it's really important to, build those networks. And this is a new skill I'm learning, because I haven't really had to look for a job since I was 25 in any real way. And so not only is it different to look for a role when you're in a more senior position to entry level, but the world is different, and the way you go about that is different now as well. And I think that is the future, which I actually think is quite exciting, because in a way it allows you to have more control on your career and matching your career to the life you want to have, touching on what Nicola was saying before, but also to evolve it as your priorities and values evolve and as you go through different stages in life.
So interesting to hear, isn't it? Because we all talk about networking now, whereas 5 years ago it wasn't so prominent. But actually, for me, what I've learned is networking isn't just about networking to get that new job. It's about learning. It's about actually the promotion, how you're recognised in the workplace, being given the best choices. And Divya, there was something that you shared with me, that you can hit a career bump, but actually it can take you to places that you never thought were possible and teach you new things. Could you tell us a bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm going to go back to when we talked about this before. I recently went to a head teacher presentation on the whole 11 plus system, which is very foreign to me. But one thing he was saying is that rather than ranking your next role or the next thing you do, actually put them all next to each other. And what does each specific role or each specific opportunity give you so that you feel successful when you've achieved one of them? And it's not that this one was better than this one. It's this one gives me well, you have your non-negotiables, as you said, but this one actually gives me, I don't know, a really good salary. This one gives me the freedom to shape the company. But look at each one individually and see what the special thing about these different parts are. And then you actually form different paths for yourself. You don't, I had a very linear career at the beginning, and now my career is anything but, because I've thought, what can each different opportunity potentially do for me, and how does it help me grow, or how does it help me live the life I want to live?
And like evidencing each of those lessons and learns, and knowing that that's taking you into different directions. And you described this, Megan, as a value exchange when you're looking for new roles. And I think that's really, really important for people to hear now, because whether you're in work, whether you're out of work, whether you're looking for work, whether you're looking for a change, this value exchange idea is a really good one.
Yeah, and I think, it goes back to exactly what Divya was saying. I think traditionally we think of the value exchange of like, it's clear what we're giving the company because there's a list of tasks, what we're asked to do, and, we get paid for that. So I think that's the traditional way of thinking of the value exchange. But as Divya was saying, actually there's so many other things to consider. Are you going to learn something? Is it taking you into a different part of the industry? Are you getting a chance to shape the business? Is it going to give you that buzzy brand on your CV? There's lots of things to consider. And I think especially in the market right now, which is quite tough, sometimes you have to take a role that isn't your dream role, that might not pay as much as you want or feels like a step back. But you have to do what you have to do. You have bills to pay, your responsibilities. And I think when you make that decision, it's definitely the right decision. But if you frame it in the value, I think there's two things that's really helpful about that, being really clear what you are getting out of it, other than just, some money to pay the bills. I think, in the short term, it really helps make it sort of easier pill to swallow in terms of, I know what I'm going in to accomplish. And if it's just focused on being paid and you're just working for the paycheck, personally, I would find that quite demoralizing. And I think on the second, it also helps keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, in terms of, again, this is personally, it's really hard not to fall into that, I want to do a good job and show them that I'm a good worker. But actually, if that's not actually the long-term fit for you, you want to remember, why are you there and what is it helping you build towards, and keep your eye on that as well. So, really being clear to yourself about what the value you're getting out of that role and that choice.
That's what I love about that value exchange, because Nicola, you were speaking on something quite similar around not reducing your standards.
Yeah.
And compromise is important, but yeah, tell us more.
So I have a list of, I guess, core competencies in myself that I absolutely will not negotiate on, and that is my freedom. But that's not freedom to come and go from work. That's not how I mean, but it's freedom to explore and to become part of the company, freedom to bring the best to the company, freedom to work in a way that shows efficacy and integrity. That leads to my next one, is integrity. That is so important to me, and that is my integrity to you and your integrity back to me. Accountability. In every company, we have to have accountability, and I guess that comes from my background in startup. Everybody has to be accountable. There is no job too small or too large for anybody to have to get done, because we all have to make sure this company doesn't fail. And I take that wherever I go, corporate or startup, wherever, it's accountability. It's value. Do I add value? Am I valued? And I think those things there are my absolutely non-negotiables. If they are not present or one of them is compromised at any point in time, I know that you're not the people for me. And that's okay. I'm not the person for you either. And I think it's super important to have particularly as you age, probably not 25-year-old me, but running down into my 40s me, has a greater sense of what those mean and the impact on my wider well-being, and also the well-being of the company. Because this value exchange that you're explaining about, I have to know that I'm bringing the value that you're expecting. And if not, then we're not aligned, and we have to be aligned.
Absolutely, and I think these are just really great bits of advice for all of us, whatever our situation is, to think, what is the value exchange right now in the situation that we may be in, but also knowing, so I call those my 1, 2, 3s, my 3 things. I boil everything down to that. Like what are the 3 things in this talk that I want to cover? What are the 3 things that I want to achieve in the next meeting? But I don't think we do it enough for ourselves in our careers. It's almost like, well, this is so big that we kind of let it go, when actually we do need to be as clear and focused on that. Divya, I wanted to bring you in because when we were prepping on this, we spoke about titles as well as something to consider when you're applying for new jobs. I wanted you to share your thoughts around what you thought about a title versus what actually the job is.
Yeah, so my last couple of roles have been my last 3 roles have been in fintechs, but there are a lot of very grand titles out there, and that's great at different stages of your career. And for me, personally, I've now had a big title, or had that a couple of times now, but it's not necessarily the be-all and end-all for me, and it is that value exchange that you were talking about. What is it that this job does for me? At certain stages in your career, you want that title, you need that title, but I'm at a stage now where actually it's less important to me, and I want to be able to do something that ticks one of those boxes that I've put across on the piece of paper. So it's given me personally, and I think depending on where you are in your career, it's given me a freedom to be able to look at things more openly, whereas my previous role that I went for is like, well, I have to be a chief risk officer or nothing else. And so I felt like I was taking jobs that gave me the title but didn't really give me something I was interested in, whereas now that interest and that the actual job content is really very, very important to me. And I'm not going to pretend I still need to get paid a decent amount. Titles do sometimes come with pay. I'm not from money. I haven't made my millions with the company that IPO'd, so it has to pay a certain amount. And you can give me the grandest title in the world, but if you're not paying me, thanks, you can have that title and just give me a proper salary.
Yeah. And what do you consider about titles, Nicola?
So I'm probably a little bit more junior in my career path than your experience. And so I've had some reasonable job titles, but actually it's something that was really important to me. I've seen a huge shift in how I'm perceived obviously it's a very male-oriented environment that we work in. I'm perceived with more kudos now with a slightly grander job title than I would have been 6 or 8 months ago. And it doesn't necessarily change the dynamic of myself, but some things are easier to get over the line. If I sit in a boardroom and I have to make really difficult decisions and I have to play very hard, it's so much easier to do that with a grand job title than it is as a middle management. And it's simply a case of being taken a little bit more seriously.
That's a perception thing as well, isn't it? And I think this, how messages land, who's delivering that message. This is something that I really am obsessed by. I watch it in my own workplace. I hear so many different scenarios from the thousands and thousands of women that I speak to who are looking for work or out of work. And I do think that we need to consider all these bits of advice and really work out what's right for you as the individual. So now I want to move on to the advice bit. And the advice for people who are either looking to career switch or they're out of work at the moment. I'd like to start with you, Divya, because you say some really amazing things around confidence.
Yeah, so I think having these squiggles gives you the confidence because you will get through them. But confidence, as I said earlier, comes from within, but it also comes from your support network. So we need those cheerleaders. We need those other people around us bigging us up. It's much easier for me to go into a meeting pitching for work if someone has already said, you should meet Divya, she's fantastic. And it helps me when I go into that meeting as well, because I go in thinking I'm fantastic. So there's that.
And you are fantastic.
Thank you. This group is amazing for making me feel fantastic. But it's that confidence for me is it always has been something very internal. But I do sometimes need that external validation, and therefore having these support networks, having people that have your back is just so important, because sometimes you don't feel confident and you need a little bit of help, or you need a little bit of time to get there again.
I'm so pleased you said that about people having your back, because for years I've been told to be more confident, but in rooms where I know people don't have my back. So I'd be a clown if I'm confident in a room where you're not listening to me or you don't believe in me. So that's so important, like knowing where you are and knowing who you have around you, and perhaps changing that and making sure you have a tribe such as this. Megan, what's your advice to people?
I think I kind of two pieces of advice, and it's building on what Divya was saying a little bit. If you are thinking about making a career change and you don't know where to start, and start with your existing network. Everyone has a network, and I think we forget that. And our network is people we've worked with before, or friends and family even. You can just start getting the word out of like, hey, I'm thinking about making a change. And that can do amazing things in terms of helping you figure out what you want to do, but also, spark ideas with people that might bring up other opportunities. I think the other thing is, if you're in my position, which is you're in between roles and you're looking for that next thing, this is hard to do every day, but as much as you can, see the time as a gift. It has been, yet some days are hard and stressful and overwhelming, but overall it has been an amazing time. How often do you get time to really reflect on your journey? Think about what you really want to do next. Work on things that have been like niggling at the back of your mind for a long time that you just never really felt like you had time to start, or even just like go to the Tate on a Wednesday morning. Those are all really amazing things, and so use that time as a gift, because we don't get it very often. So that would be my other piece.
Thank you. And your advice, Nicola?
Keep going until you find your people. I think you can keep traveling forwards, sideways. However, I've been made redundant twice. One because I was really bad at the job, and one because it was just part of the industry, and I was very sad about that. And you just have to keep going until you find those people. The right people will raise you up. The right people will give you that value. The right people will be where you're supposed to be.
That's a really, really powerful bit of advice, and great bits of advice from everybody. So when I introduce these podcasts, I always say we're here today to walk the talk for inclusion, because we all know now what I mean by that. There's so much talk, there's so much discussion, but where's the action? And for me today, I wanted this to be really actionable and really solid bits of advice for everybody, because in careers, there's going to be jumps, there's going to be bumps, and actually the future does hold a lot of squiggly lines, and that doesn't need to be negative, especially if we have our tribe, we have our network. So if there was one final bit of advice from the three of you to the audience to be more active in their support, or to be more active in supporting themselves, what would that advice be, Nicola?
Allyship.
Thank you.
Building on that really is, don't be afraid to ask for help, and if someone asks you for help, answer their message or their phone call.
Fantastic. Divya.
So I think for that's very much what I was going to say, so I'll try and think something different on the fly. But if you're in, you were both talking about that, but if you're in these meetings where you have the senior title, you have the voice, bring the other voices in, use your position to give other people that confidence, to give them that power, to give them the ability to use their voice, whether that's within a business context or otherwise.
Thank you so much to the three of you for joining me on this live podcast of FinTech's DEI discussions. I always conclude by saying, let's listen, let's learn, let's walk the talk. Thank you, everybody.